They're actually looking for work, for people to engage. And one of the things they did was say, hey, let's find a way to end cancer. We are smart people. There's all these tools. So let's start doing it. And I did start looking at some of the things that are being done in cancer. There's a lot of people doing work in cancer right now. And so in just looking at that, so how can my SQA skills and AI tools help? Ultimately in QA, I think one of the things we do is we eliminate possible factors that's making this bug, that's making this program not work correctly. That's one of the things we do. We do a good job of narrowing down, hey, this is a possibility, that's a correlation, that's not a cause. We do this on a regular basis in our field. And I think in doing my research, I discovered the science world is very, it's almost opaque in comparison to the software field. There's a lot of ambiguities and different languages. I think in software, we're very certain in our language. There's a cause for that bug, and we know it. Even if it's spaghetti code, we're going to find the cause of that bug. It's not necessarily that case in the medical field. So while I said why Combinator was looking for cancer, there's a lot of work being done in cancer. So then I started poking around, and I decided, hey, MS and ALS, they're both scoliosis. MS is actually a female-dominated disease. ALS is male-dominant. So it was a smaller population that was dealing with this, and I felt like it was something that I could actually put my hands around a little bit more. So I started looking at the scoliosis, MS and ALS. And one of the thoughts I had was like, okay, I have to define my project. The human being is going to be my software program. I have to look at it in that way and not look at it as, it's a person with feelings. The word does not have feelings, right? We know the word program does not have feelings. And that's how we should start actually looking at some of these diseases perhaps, and not take the human factor out of it almost. So in my initial looking at MS and ALS, and trying to do some deeper diving of research, I discovered that, okay, these are hard diseases also to put your hands around, and they've been around and have no cure right now because for a reason, obviously. And I really started focusing on MS, in part because ALS, we don't know why it happens. And there's a lot of conflicting information. And it was conflicting enough where it was just too much to parse. So MS just seemed a little bit more palatable. And so my thought was, okay, I'm going to define the project. I'm going to have to see, okay, is there something to prevent? Is there an early stage, a mid stage, and a late stage? And how will I look at this? Sorry. I'm going to need, so my life cycle, can't do waterfall. You have to use Agile because it's an iterative process. You're going to find out information. You're going to make suggestions. There are going to be tools that we're going to use. And I like mind maps. And so that was going to be my first step. I was going to try to organize all the stuff that I was finding, and see where I can actually use AI, where I can use two tools. And I narrowed it down to ChatGPT-4 and Google AI, in part because I tried using Microsoft, and Microsoft, their AI tools were very kludgy. It was literally giving me wrong information. Which I thought was really odd. And I assume it's just the sources that they're getting, that whatever they're hitting first. It was not meshing with all the other. If I go to Mayo Clinic, I can find information. But if I also test it in ChatGPT or AI or Google AI, Microsoft was not working out. So I had to get my tool set up. My initial stages for this was, there wasn't a lot of documentation for either disease. I think it's that we just don't know how it's happening. We know it's a degenerative disease. It hits people, and there is no backtracking. You can pause it a little bit. There's enough medication to pause MS, not ALS. ALS kind of is just a forward trajectory, and there doesn't seem to be any pauses in it. MS, I made a mind map. What do we know? How rare is it? It's actually very rare. The symptoms, you get a brain and a spinal lesion, and medication can actually pause it for a while. So here is my mind map as I'm trying to do it. Female, it's kind of a scary disease in that it hits women, and it hits them very young. So one of the things I also discovered was that there's this theory in MS that vitamin D deficiency is a big cause. So I was like, all right, that's something I can jump onto. I'm envisioning a developer saying, hey, this program isn't working, and I believe it's because of this. So I'm being told this body isn't working, and it's because it's a vitamin D deficiency. So then I can start using the ChatGPT and Google AI to really start hammering into this theory. So in some of my, so as a tester, I'm given I'm told that 1 out of 300 installs, it's failing. It's not operating correctly. And once it has this issue, then it just continues on this path of degradation. So I created my table. What is my ideal human? What is the one with a defect? This is an ideal human absorbs vitamin D. Immune system doesn't attack itself. Muscles grow and regenerate. Vision is assisted with glasses, not pharmaceuticals. And the human body with a defect does not absorb vitamin D. The immune system overreacts, overprotects, attacks the person. The muscles degrade, vision degrades and cannot be repaired. But that isn't always the case. I talked to a couple of pediatricians where they were like, no, sometimes the medication can get there in time, where someone who woke up blind can take the medication and then can see again. So then I started, okay, vitamin D is the issue. I used ChatGPT. Which countries have the highest levels of vitamin D deficiency? So I was super surprised. These are like sub-Saharan, warmer places where they would have vitamin D deficiencies. And I checked it across ChatGPT-4 and Google AI, and they came up with the same list. Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and the presumption is they cover because it's so hot. So you have a vitamin D deficiency. But then if I try to align with what I'm finding and the theory that vitamin D deficiency causes high levels of MS, well, the countries that are listed and the countries with high levels of MS actually there isn't a lot of correlation. There's just, okay, a couple of countries here, a couple of countries here, but the vast majority of countries with vitamin D deficiency actually do not have high levels of MS. So as a tester, I'm beginning to think, well, this programmer is wrong. This programmer's theory of this is not the cause, this is the cause is probably not correct. And if I look in the United States, however, you'll see these are the states with high levels of MS. All pretty much northern-based states. And if I do alignment, that actually works out. States with high vitamin D deficiency also have high levels of MS. But still, if I were to write my bug report, I'm going to say, okay, the disease of multiple sclerosis, I've used these 2 AI tools. I'm told that a person with vitamin D deficiency does develop MS. But in my research using these 2 tools, I'm finding that a person with vitamin D deficiency does not necessarily develop MS. It's actually 0.33% of the time that they would actually develop. And if this was a program that we were testing, we wouldn't actually say, okay, this is the reason why this program is failing. We would actually say, well, it's a possibility, but it's so far out of the realm of possibilities that we probably wouldn't say, this is what we need to do. My environment, unfortunately, it's women, ages 20 to 40. Diet, there isn't a lot of information on diet. I guess a lot of pediatricians who are treating teens and early 20s, girls in their teens and early 20s, a lot of the time they'll assume that this person is trying to be a vegetarian. So they're taking out red meat, so they're vitamins, so they are deficient in vitamin D. And it makes a lot of sense. So there isn't a lot of alert, but we actually don't track this. There's almost no information on the diet of people who get it. So since we're in the Pacific Northwest, so it is found that persons who develop MS also have vitamin D deficiency. It is therefore theorized that if a person who has low levels of vitamin D, they have the risk of developing multiple sclerosis. But based on the findings, it's more of a correlation than a causation. Looking at common country regions from these two AI tools, I'm not finding, I'm telling the developer, I'm not finding the levels of MS that I should be finding. And then my recommendation, if I were to submit this, would be, hey, vitamin D deficiency occurs in everyone who has MS. Not everyone who has vitamin D deficiency develops MS. Based on the publicly available data, the vitamin D deficiency theory is at best a correlation, not a cause. Yeah, so if this were a software defect, if someone said, hey, you have to look at this because, and we believe it's this cause, I would actually write up something that says this is not the cause. I have nothing that leads me to believe that this is the cause for this. And having said that, I haven't really found, even using ChatGPT and Wikidata, actually also used Wikidata in this, and try to pull up as much data as I can. There really isn't a lot of data on some of these diseases, which I was actually very surprised about. I thought there would be just a plethora of work being done to find certain things. And maybe I should have stuck with cancer and just find like a different cancer thing and maybe be able to pull in large data sets. My vision was initially to grab data sets and use GTP as this sort of like an intern, right? Get this data set, evaluate it, tell me what's in there, tell me what you're finding, and make me a chart of where the commonalities are or the causations could possibly be. In MS and ALS, it's very few people get it. It's I think 1 in 100 people, 1 in 300 people get it, but it's still, it is a disease that we have no cure for. There is no backtracking it. Once the lesions begin, it's a permanent destruction to the brain and the spine. And it happens very young, which is obviously one of the tragedies of it. So with Y Combinator putting the call out, hey, we can do this. I think there needs to be, we are kind of in the software world, I think we're kind of behind, we are very much dependent on what science is doing. We're kind of on the tail end of it. We take what they have, and there isn't a lot for certain diseases. And so maybe we could find a cure for cancer, but at the moment, like, I can't imagine finding a cure for MS or ALS with the limited data that is out there. And that was it. Right. So,
I was wondering what kind of challenges did you face when you were using these tools?
Before you answer, I want to repeat the question. Okay. So there's a question in the room on what type of tools are being used in this analysis.
What challenges did she face?
What challenges did Tracy face in doing this analysis?
So yeah, so using ChatGPT, the hardest thing about using Chat, it's very responsive, but it does lack transparency, right? If I compare it to what I find in Google AI, when I do searches there, Google will list all of its references. And I can go and check, I can look at some references and say, no, that's just too small. But in ChatGPT, Not all the time. It's inconsistent, but for the most part, there really wasn't a lot of, I want to be able, for every bit of information they give me, I want to be able to verify that it's true. But it doesn't really list, it doesn't have like a link to, hey, go to this website, this is where we got it from. So there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of having to validate your information that you're getting from ChatGPT. Whereas, not to like say it's all great with Google, but they at least had a good amount of references. Microsoft did as well, but some of it was just enough information was incorrect that I just stopped using it because it was just taking too much time, because it is time you're putting into this. And it was just too incorrect too many times, and I just put it aside. So yeah, validation of the information that they're giving you. And perhaps that's the big, I don't know, career opportunity for QA, is the validation of the prompt engineering that happens.
If I may follow up, did you find some commonalities in results between the two tools you used?
Yes, the information, sometimes the information, like, I don't know how to go back with this. When I did this, the Google results for vitamin D deficiency, they kind of pretty much came up with the same information. Maybe the countries were a little bit differently listed, but it was still the same region. So there's some commonalities, but it would be cool to have a tool that could say, search these two AI tools and pull up the results that make sense, that are actually common. But yeah, so there was that happened a fair amount of time.
On the topic of vitamin D and MS, it seems like the data that in research, I'm just guessing this, but you take people that that have MS, and then you test them and you find out they're low vitamin D. But it seems like without access to like the entire population's blood panels, which I'm like, that's not possible. But was there any effort in trying to like get data like that, so people like you can use it?
So I did engage with some medical research teams, and they are very closed. Even if that data is anonymized, they were very hesitant to provide any of that data. There was a conference in the UK that I wish and maybe I'll do it next year, where they do have a lot more information about vitamin D, because they also have a high rate of MS in the UK. And so they seem to be the most open with information, but you actually had to be there to like get it. But like Australia, which also has a high level of MS, their research folks wouldn't open up. They were like, well, you have to be part of this kind of organization. It was very tightly closed, which I was kind of surprised about, because, don't we all want to win in these diseases? Why is it so tight-fisted? But, and I want to say there are conferences in like Abu Dhabi on vitamin D deficiency and all the things that happen with, that can happen because of that. I was also kind of surprised that was a location. But then once you start seeing, okay, all these particular regions of the world where there's a lot of heat, people cover up, and then they have this. I was really hoping to find like a trajectory of, okay, these are a certain amount of people that you can be born with vitamin D deficiency. There isn't an actual study. I did not come across a study that showed people born with vitamin D deficiency eventually develop MS or ALS or something. Like that information isn't out there. And I want to say I did a fair amount of research, like using the tools and going to various websites. I think I found a listing of maybe 1,000 current research studies on MS. And I stopped looking at ALS just because there's just not enough. We just don't know why it's happening.
I suspect there are genetic.
Well, and there's also language usage that's a little weird. In MS, they said it's not hereditary or genetic, but if someone in your family has it, then you're more likely to get it. And I was like, okay, maybe my understanding of of that isn't quite there, but So yeah, so there's like also breaking through like communication things.
So this is like a prime example of, AI needs data in order to operate.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I tried using ChatGPT to look at some scans on Kaggle. There are some efforts there to research MS, and some people will post images, some MRIs, and ChatGPT kind of did nothing with it. I was like, what do you see? Nothing. So that also would have been kind of interesting.
So when you say Google AI, are you referring to Gemini?
Gemini, yeah.
So would you prefer one over the other in this experience?
I liked Google AI because it linking references, it just eliminates so much work. Because everything that ChatGPT gave to me, I felt like I had to verify. And then that just took more time.
What was it? Microsoft required?
Google, Gemini, yeah. Yeah, yep.
So regarding the reference part, I think it's combining information from various websites and stuff, right? Maybe that's why it's hard for them to give a single reference for an information that they're giving, because it's like putting together a lot of things.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Any other questions? People joining virtually, any questions from you? Please raise your hand so that I can unmute you. It feels like 30 seconds.
Okay.
If you want to respond.
I'll say there is also an organization in the UK, Society of Research Software Engineering. They do this as well. And I unfortunately discovered them kind of late, but to this, but they appear to be doing this similar work. Society of Research Software Engineering, RSE.